Hi guys, today we're just going to be talking about how I handle being overstimulated and living in a busy city. So the quick answer is not well, always. But I do have some tips for like managing. I do a lot of symptom management when I'm out, usually on any occasion. So let's just get into it. I have like kind of 7 or so little quick tips. So the first one's going to be kind of obvious, and that's to use noise-canceling headphones or loops. I personally don't want to use something where I can't hear at all, unless like I'm on the metro or something like that. In general, if I'm out shopping and I'm just trying to like lower how much I feel overwhelmed, or like walking, especially in DC, I prefer to use something where I can still hear the things going on around me, but they're kind of like muffled, and I can also kind of listen to music because it helps a lot. So yeah, but I do have a pair of loops that I use. My husband also uses them. He uses them a lot at work because actually they're good PPE as well. If you work in an environment where you need ear PPE, they're not rated for it technically, but like you can use them at concerts to kind of deaden some of the noise. Great for all of that, and they're very portable and small, so they're great. I have them on my keychain, and the thing I found actually with the loops is like I used them back when we had summer reading last year, when like programs would let out and there was like a million children in the library screaming, and it helped with some of the overwhelm. I don't really like to use them a whole lot when I have to talk to people. I don't like to really have anything, and it might help with some of the overstimulation, but I think I just have some sensory processing issues when it comes to that, where sometimes, like especially if there's a lot going on, I can't like really understand what people are saying to me, and having something that would inhibit how well I hear actually kind of gives me anxiety. I'm sure that's not a unique experience, but like that's just kind of the way it is for me. So a lot of the time, if I'm where I'm going to have to talk to somebody, I can't really use them because I would feel too anxious that I wouldn't be able to like hear or be perceived as rude for having earbuds. They're not even real earbuds. They're like just earplugs, but like they look like earbuds. For having those in, I would be like perceived as rude, and I just don't. So my tip number 2 is to understand when you're kind of reaching your threshold and feeling kind of tapped out in terms of how overstimulated you are. Choose to take breaks or just stay home, stay in when you need to. Give yourself permission to just deal with FOMO, honestly. Especially if you're like in a real city where there's like a lot of events happening a lot of the time. There is a lot of FOMO that goes along with that, but like you just have to embrace it and understand that you're not gonna be able to do everything. And sometimes it's more important to like spend the time resting and recharging than it is going out and pushing yourself beyond your threshold, because then you feel like shit and it just doesn't help. But understanding when you're kind of reaching that limit is super important, and that takes a little bit of work, I think, because it's such a somatic experience that like you feel it, but you don't realize why you're feeling it initially, at least in my case. So like understanding why I'm feeling like anxious or like agitated or something sad even, especially when I'm out, is like important to me. I have to be like, okay, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Like what's going on? Or am I just overwhelmed? Am I tired? That's a big thing for me. Tip number 3 would be, if you live in an apartment, installing good blinds, curtains, as well as some type of soundproofing, at least in like certain rooms, maybe like your bedroom, so that you can really make that like an insulated space. That's a big tip. Like for me, so long story short, our bedroom used to be on the other end of the house, and we had some trouble with like people in that house next to us. On that side, they had a work truck, and they would run it real early in the morning because it was like a diesel, and then that would wake us up at like 3, 4 in the morning because it was like maybe 20, 25 feet from our bedroom window. So we moved our bedroom to the other end of the house. Now there's issues with that too, but you know, you can do stuff like that where you're kind of like choosing where to place certain rooms in your house to like lessen the impact of noise. Tip number 4 is, like I said, take breaks when you need them, not just opting out sometimes, but taking breaks when you are out is super important. This is something I am still getting better at, but I have found that doing it helps a lot. Recently, I think this is the first year when we went to Renfest where I tend to get really overwhelmed right when we get there, because it's like you're going from being in the car with like one other person to an event with like hundreds of people around you. So it's very like immediately overwhelming. And I found that if I just like take a break right off the get-go and sit and kind of immerse myself in the environment, it helps. Tip number 5 is carry a face mask and some type of like calming scent. If you are really sensitive to smells, just carry it around with you. I have like these little aromatherapy from Bath and Body Works, the calm one, or I think it's a stress relief technically. I carry like the little spray bottles around with me when I go places. Like I have one in pretty much every bag that I take with me. They help. Like sometimes I'll spray them. During the pandemic when like everybody was actively masking all the time still, I was spraying that inside of my mask actually, and it helped a lot with anxiety. I also kind of spray them like on my sleeves, so I can just kind of like discreetly like take sniffs of it. That sounds really weird, but like do that if I need to. I think the important thing with aromatherapy is to progressively and over time associate a smell with a certain like feeling, like relaxation or calmness or whatever, because in the same way that like our brains can associate certain memories and stuff with smells and sounds, it's the same thing with like feelings. So it's important to like reinforce that over time and not always use those smells when you're feeling stressed out, because then your brain actually might start to associate that with stress. Tip number 6 is to wear sunglasses. I take my sunglasses literally everywhere with me. They're, again, another thing that's always in my bag. And if I'm outside and it's daylight, usually, unless it's like really dark and raining, obviously I'm not going to wear them then, but like even if it's overcast and it's still pretty sunny, it's like kind of bright, I will wear sunglasses, especially if I'm driving, because not only do they help with eye strain in my case, but they help with a lot of the overstimulation when it comes to like bright lights, which I have a lot of light sensitivity. So, and my last tip is plan a little bit especially when you're going out for longer periods of time. Like I said, I kind of have staples that I have in my bag all the time. And that's just how I've found that it works for me. But for some people, you might not need these on like a everyday basis. But you may need things like if you're going out for like several hours at a time. Some examples of this, of the stuff that I take out with me pretty much anytime I'm going, is my water bottle, chapstick, sunglasses, my loops, that spray, and medication for my migraines and headaches and just general pain. I do also carry Pepto with me everywhere I go, because I have some chronic issues. So that has been a lifesaver on multiple occasions. Like if I'm out and my stomach just starts to really suck, then that helps. Some other things you might consider are like a small personal fan, which I do have one that goes around the neck, but I'm going to get one that you hold. I only use that for like conventions because I get a like anxiety sweat still, and just in general, like in the summertime here, it's really fucking hot. So if I'm out, I take a fan with me. Good, comfortable shoes and clothes, which are pretty much always a thing for me, no matter what. And fidgets are another thing. So I use fidgets a lot if I go to like the mall or like places that are very people-y, and I use them in subtle ways. So a lot of time I'll have something like a little fidgety type thing clipped to the outside of my purse so that I can kind of mess with it without looking like super weird standing there stimming with them. So just a small tip, like things I've used are like little plush like bag clips that I've gotten in like blind bags. I have one that a little bell. So yeah, those are my tips for dealing with overstimulation if you live kind of in a busy urban area or a big city. Let me know if you have any additional tips down in the comments. And thank you guys for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Shut it